Morning. So we're up to Shin Lamed Daled Seif Yud. We're talking about a fire, Rahman Islam on Shabbos, and what you can take out. So we've said so far in Sif Aleph, we said that Chazal allowed you to take out Mozen Gimel Sudus, food it takes for 3 meals. Now we're going to go into a bit more detail on that. Says the Mechaber in Sif Yud, Kol Hatzolah She'amarnu, any hatzolah, any saving that the Chazal say you're allowed to do, is only to another chotzer which is mu'urav, i.e. you can carry out to it. But not to another chotzer where there's no eruv, where you can't actually carry there. Says the Ramah, the Ramah says no, that even to a chotzer which is not mu'urav, you're allowed to carry out to there. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chofhei, Hainu, Bein Hatzolah Demozin Shalosh Sudas, or Kli Tashmishav, whether it's talking about the actual food, or whether it's talking about your pots and pans and knives and forks, or Bein Hatzolah de Malbushim, or it's actually the Hatzolah of Malbushim, you can save clothes. For Afal Gav, the Posuk Le'el, B'Simin Shin Aleph, the Sif Lamed Vov, to Mutzalotes B'Shnei Malbushim, Ze'al Gav Zeh, that we said previously that you're allowed to wear 2 jackets, 2 items of clothing. Mentioned the derech malbush, it's not really carrying you; it's considered derech malbush. Hacha given the hatzolah ka'asik here, since you're involved in hatzolah, you're saving items. Chashin and tfei, you're more concerned the diminishishu Shabbos, that you will forget that it's Shabbos. V'yavel lechabos, and you might come to extinguish the fire, which is a malach on Shabbos. That's the first shitta. V'hayesh mekilin, and the second opinion of the Ramah, who says you can even carry out, even to a chotzer she'ena mureves, lo svir luhu haisvara, to nachmir b'malbushim b'zeh tfei mi ba'alma, that you have to be more strict with malbushim, with clothes than other things, u'lahachi mekilin, and therefore he's mekil. V'al malbushim kaimi, and the whole thing is going on malbushim. Aval inin mozen shalosh sudas, but with regard to food, or klei tashmishan, or vessels used for the meal, they would also agree that you can only carry out to a chotzer which is mu'ureves. So according to this Lini's opinion, the whole heta is only to carry out malbushim to a chotzer which is not mu'ureves. And those clothes that we allow, of course we're only talking about where you're wearing them. But if you're carrying them in your hands, then it's no different to anything else that you're carrying. After the she'ena mureves, sorry, that is okay. Sorry, that all of the above is going on the first shit of the Mechaber. That's talking about food and things like that. But if you're wearing derech malbush, that's not a problem because you're just wearing it. It's considered malbush. Then the Ramah comes along and says yesh mekilin after she'ena mureves. I think that's pshat. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chofvov, for hu adin da afilu l'sarabim. There you're allowed even to go to a sarabim kimishanoisim derech malbush, because there you're wearing a derech malbush. It allow you to even go into a street, into a sarabim. For hine habach pasuk kadeh rishona avol kol achrein pasuk kadeh zu, like the Meikel opinion of the Ramah. Okay, Yud Aleph. Yesh omrim to kol hatzolah she'amarnu hi lechotzer umavu hasmuchin l'shusarabim. There are those who say that all the hatzolah, this dispensation to carry out 3 meals, etc., is only to a chotzer or mavi, which is somuch l'rishus rabim. For gam enum mukorim, and it's also not roofed. The domi l'rishus rabim, therefore, it's got a feel of rishus rabim. It's similar to rishus rabim. Mishum hochi ein matirin lahatzer el mozen gimel sudas, and that's why you can only take out food for 3 meals, for kelim atzrichim and the kelim that you need for that. Aval bayis acher she'erev emoy, but another house where you made an erev with them, then yochel hotzi kol mashir, so you can take out and carry whatever you want. V'af lechotzer, and even to the chotzer, le'omer lechotzer chavero, they're only talking about your friend's chotzer. Aval lechotzer sheloi she'ein atzricha erev, but to your own chotzer, your own courtyard, then yochel lahotzi kol mashir, so you can take whatever you want. V'yesh omrim she'ein chiluk, and there are those who say there's no distinction. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Chov Zayin. Aval bayis acher rotzolema tekimin shul mekoira. Since this is roofed, ein adoy meklal l'shus rabim. This is not similar at all to Rosh Hashanah. Because remember, something which is roofed is not going to be Rishus Rabbim. And therefore there's no mokum to make a gezerah to go to that you might come to carry into a Rishus Rabbim. Even though the Gemara gives the reason that because of your tirda, your confusion and your stress, you might come to extinguish the fire. The only place to make the gezerah is in a situation where they may come to put the fire out. Good. Sorry, where there is a chashash of hoitzah as well, i.e., of you might come to carry to a rishus harabim. So in other words, the concern is the Gemara says the reason is you might come to mechaber, but Chazal only made this gezerah in a situation where there's a proper hoitzah, i.e. a rishus harabim. Anything you're going out to another friend's chotzer which is covered and therefore is not rishus harabim, like there's no problem. Chovches she'ein tzricha eruv rotzalei she'ein bod diurin, i.e. there are no people there. V'domi kavais echod she'nofel bod deleka. It's like the fire's gone into one house only. She'mutar leitzi mecheder lecheder, just like you can carry from one room to the next. So too here you're allowed to carry from one house to the next. And therefore you don't make a gezerah. Given the hatam shemi yishkach v'yovel lechabes, you might come to extinguish mali chotz mali bayis. At the end of the day, you're stressed. You might come to extinguish the fire, and therefore there's no discussion whether you're going out to a different house, a different chotzer, or mali machotzer hu shel rab machotzer sheloi. We don't make any distinctions. Well, lemaisa kimishu milsa drabonon efshe sheyesh lismech lahokel. We can be makel because the whole thing is a gezerah. You might come to extinguish, and therefore we can be makel. Okay, that's the end of that. Now, next halach is a very interesting one. Kol kisvei hakodesh. What can you actually save? So one of the things you're allowed to save are sifrei Torah and kisvei kodesh and things like that. So says the Mechaber, Kol kisvei hakodesh matzilin ha'idna mipnei hadleka. Nowadays you can save all kisvei kodesh because of a fire. For korin bohem afilu ksuvim b'choloshen. You can read from them, and even ksuvim b'choloshen, even if they're written in other languages. Va'afilu ksuvim b'sam of a sikra, even if they are written not in proper diya, not in proper ink. Pirush minei tzivonim, coloured waters, or b'chol dov, or any other thing. V'chein matbea brocha shetov v'chachomim. For example, you've got a placard of a brocha that Chazal were fixed. That you can save it from a fire, even a card which says, Alamichya card or something like that, you can save it. And to be honest, not only that, not only from a fire, but even if it's abandoned in a hefka place, then you can even save it from that. And so too, even Targum, i.e. Aramaic, which is written in Hebrew letters, Kagoin Yegar Sa'adusa, from the Parshas Vayetz, I think it is, or V'chidno Teimrun Lahain, which is the Targum of Pasuk in Yirmiyah, the Ivri Sheksovay Targum, or Hebrew writing, which is written in other languages, or in Targum, or in Beloshen Achei, in other languages. She'osom B'kiyim Boy, other people are more familiar with it. V'chein Sefer Torah sheyesh bo lelakit pei hei otius, or a Sefer Torah which has got such little text left. It's only got 85 letters, which is the minimum amount considered, because that's the parsha of Vayibin Sa'orin. It's got the Shem Hashem, all of those things you can save. So you can save all the different types of Kisvei Kodesh, even if they're not written in Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah. Kol Kisvei HaKodesh, Hainu, Tanach, Gemara v'chol Seforim. For Torah shebichsav kodemes lahatzil Torah shebal peh, and Torah shebichsav comes before Torah shebal peh. Va'afilu Torah shebal peh mushalim or muskarim la. Even if the Torah shebal peh, the Gemaras and the Seforim which you've got are loaned to you, or even you rented them, v'imlo yatzil Torah shebal peh yitzarich l'shalim leba'aleim, and if you don't save them, you're going to have to pay back money. Afilu hachi Torah shebichsav kodem. Nevertheless, Torah shebichsav comes first. V'hatzolas hameis kodem Seforim. And if Rachman is done, there is a mace there, you're allowed to take the mace out, or you should take the mace out even before the Seforim. Matzilin ha'idna, hadanaka b'lashon ha'idna, mishum derotz l'sayim, afilu ksuvim b'chol lashon, because he wants to finish off by talking about ksuvim b'chol lashon. U'biyah hadov, and the explanation is, dinim mitzad adin, tershe b'chsav ein koisen la ksav ashuris. Because mi'ik hadin, when you write a Sefer Torah, it's got to be written in ksav ashuris, which means in the letters that we're familiar with, the R aleph base. Hu haksav shall Sefer Torah, which is the ksav of Sefer Torah we use, of course, today. Over Lashon HaKodesh, and of course it's in Hebrew. Lashon HaKodesh. For Torah Shebal Peh, however, Torah Shebal Peh, Hainu HaShas, V'chal HaSforim, all the look around, everything we've got here, Asa Lichtei V'Elakorinus and Balpeh. The truth is, originally, you were not allowed to write them down. It was by its name's definition, it's Torah Shebal Peh. V'im Shina, and if you changed, Hein Torah Shebichsav, Shekos V'Shelo Kedin, Bichsave or B'Sheinai, in a different language or text or font, or if you wrote down Torah Shebal Peh, Ein Karen B'Hem, you're not allowed to read from that. For Gamei Mentzilin on Shabbos, and strictly speaking, you're not allowed to even save that on Shabbos Minad Deka, to also the Taltum Klal, because it's Muktzah. Avalo Idna, but nowadays, that's what the Mechaber means by nowadays. Avalo nowadays, to Bot Ziliba, i.e., we're sort of weaker. Kinismayat Hadas Hazikaran, our memories are no good, and we can't rely on the oral transmission of Torah Shebal Peh. Huta Lichtov Torah Shebal Peh, you're allowed to write down Torah Shebal Peh. Shaloi Kadesh Leishtakchu. Yeah, Eis Lasos Lashem, we say. V'gam b'chol kasav v'loshen, you can write in English and other languages as well. V'gam Torah shebichsav b'chol loshen v'chol ksav. Kadesh yavinu kol omes divrei Torah. Right, you got. I saw recently they just translated the new Mishnahs, the brilliant Mishnahs from the Art Scroll, into Spanish and other languages. That's the call of the hour. Ki eina kol bekim b'loshen hakodesh. Not everyone is familiar with loshen hakodesh. V'samchu kol zeh amal d'chsiv eis lasos Hashem efiu Torah secha. V'lochein kurin bohen amatzilin osom mipnei adleika b'Shabbos. And therefore you're allowed to read from them and save them from a fire on Shabbos. V'sforim shelonu sheksuvim b'lsheinom shel kutim v'nimsa eslam. We've got English Seforim and things like that. Yesh listapikim tunim geniza. There's a shaila whether or not they need geniza or not. D'haloi shari lichtov b'loshen acher, because they're not really allowed to be written in another language. The whole heter to do it is Eis Las Hashem. For Lohem mi hiten, who was matter that? For I'm Mogen Avram sheherich oid bazeh. If you look at 32, he says something very interesting. For Sifrei Tanach she'etfisim nochrim. Sifrei Tanach, which Nochrim have published, Kosov b'shal Yeshuvas Minchas Yitzchok, she'af al pi she'osa lilmoid mehem, mikol makom tzorech legoyin zom. Okay, it was just printed and published by non-Jewish people, or written by non-Jewish people. Now, published. For Sefer HaMuravim B'Divrei Kfira. However, if these Seforim have got Kfira in them, Kosov B'Shal Yeshuvas Zikrus Moshe, She'af She'yesh B'Psukim B'Shemus HaKodesh, Mikol Mokum Ton Sreifa. So if you've got Apikurs in it, even though they've got Psukim in it, I remember the Dayan one time. He threw it, he ripped it, he chucked it out. Yeah. So that's exactly this halacha. That's the Igros Moshe. The sefer shechoy be'alidei shomer Torah mitzvahs. However, a sefer Torah, or any sefer which is written by a shomer Torah mitzvahs, and a shemachabehu baal deas chitzonius. His shomer Torah mitzvahs, but his views are a little bit das chitzonius. Hazara l'derech hamasora, which is sort of beyond the accepted tradition. Let me have a say. Nu kos v'shal shuv shevet halevi sheton gniza. You shouldn't learn them, and you got to put them in Geniza, because at the end of the day, the guy is a Shemet Torah mitzvahs. Okay, let's just finish off. Lamed base, even if they're written with ink, with ink which is not diyoi, koya ksuvim b'chol loshen. That's talking about ksuvim. Then lo yutz likris bohen imayu ksuvim shelo b'diyoi. But that, in that situation, if it's not written b'diyoi, then you shouldn't be reading them. The medina tzarich list of Tanach b'loshen hakodesh b'diyoi. Yeah, you go to some shuls where you have nach written properly in diyoi in loshen hakodesh b'diyoi. When he to huta shar loshen mishum eis las lashem canal aval l'shanetz mediyoi lehuta, but to not use diyoi ink is not allowed. To kala hasik diyoi because it's very easy and available, and that needs to be done. That's when we're talking about reading them. With regards to saving them from a fire, even if it's written Basam V'Sikra, then you are allowed to save them. Okay, says Mishnah Berurah, because all of these things you're allowed to write them nowadays, and you can daven and make brachas from them. If you go to Eastern Europe and you go to Polish and Russian shuls, many times you'll see them written on the actual walls of of the shul, brachas and parts of the tefillah. That's how they would do it. And therefore you can save all of these bracha cards and alamichya placards and things from a fire. And they also need gniza. They can't be abandoned. And even Aramaic, for example, Yagar Sadusa, Homa Batera, Verotzalema Shehishlim, you're allowed to save a Sefer Torah if it has a minimum of 85 letters, and included in that is words like Yagar Sadusa, which appear in the Torah. But if you only have the whole thing left is Yagar Sadusa, then you wouldn't save it. But it's mashlim as part of the 85 letters to enable you to save a Sefer Torah. Okay. Sifkat Namatei, Avlim Ha'am Einam Mavinim Osei Haloshin, also Lekosfer Lahatzile. But if it's written in, I don't know, Japanese, art scroll in South Korean, I think they've got. Yeah, if that's written if it's just like something like that in a language which we just are not familiar with, then you can't save it. For the Rak Mishum Esas Lashem, for Chanal, but for us it doesn't help us. You're allowed to if you're not familiar with Lashon HaKodesh, which is what our heter is nowadays. If it's got a minimum of 85 letters left, it's still got a little bit of Kedusha of a Sefer Torah, because that's the number of letters in the Parasha of Vayibin Zohar, which is called a Sefer Bifnei Atzmai. Shleimos, Rotzaloima, Shenimcha Kol HaSefer, i.e. the rest of the Sefer has been erased. V'nisha rak teva achas shleima kan, v'teva kan, you got a word here, a word there, ad shebein kulam yesh pei ha'osus. Together, the random readable words make up 85 letters. As opposed to if they're just individual letters, you've got to have at least words. But if they're just a letter here, a letter there, adding up to 85, then then it doesn't help you to have 85. And this is all to do with the allowance to save it. But regarding burying such a sefer which is so sort of erased and ruined and worn out that you've only got 85 random letters, you might not be able to save it from it later, but it does still need Geniza. Peseda. Okay, we'll leave it there.